Okay, let me.
Okay. So, what are we on about today?
All right. Well, good evening. Today we're going to be speaking about the mood and how nutrition, hormones, stress affect our mood, and also with some recommendations for both your lifestyle and supplementation to improve and maybe have a more steady mood and not sort of waver so much.
That's right. Up and down.
Up and down, which is difficult in the current climate.
That's
Everyone
right.
finds it challenging, but I think it's important, especially within the family and outside of the world. Because someone's bad mood can affect, whether it's your own or someone else, it has a knock-on effect affecting a lot of other people. So I think it's something that if everyone could work on, it would probably make the world a lot easier of a place to live in as well. So maybe we start with talking within mood and with nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that really where to start? That's the question. So
Did I miss? Sorry, did I miss last week when you covered sort of other aspects of mood or?
No, last week it was more. We did an informal Q&A.
Yeah. We
Okay.
did. We're just doing it today.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think, because we have obviously limited time and because we just want to cover the essential ones, I really feel that it will be going in the right direction if we just speak, for example, about the carbohydrates and the moods, okay?
Okay.
So, number one, that we are eating too much. Okay, we're basically eating because the governments or authorities, they told us that there is a breakfast and then there is a snack and then there is a lunch and then there is a tea around 4 o'clock and then there is a supper or dinner. And so we are eating all the time, basically. And I will get on to sort of the issues of what we are eating. But because we are eating all the time, we are really not metabolizing all that we are eating. And this can create a lot of havoc and discomfort, because when we are feeling heavy, it ultimately will translate into heaviness in our mood, I think the human being generally, it's a pretty, mechanical being. We need to move. So when we are not moving, when we feel full, for example, okay, we need to rest, or we feel sleepy because we are too well fed or too full, so this creates really a lot of conflicts. This is just the observation from generally what I see in the clinical practice, the complaints from people, and you really notice that once we go down, for example, to when appropriate, once again, to longer periods of fasting, or maybe just once or twice eating a day, and also just not eating after 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. I never usually impose that on people, saying like, okay, from now on we are not eating after 6 o'clock, but I just usually say, just try not to eat after 6 o'clock, and you really will notice the difference, and the difference is huge, and you will never actually have to tell people not to, because they will notice the difference. And if you really care about yourself and would like to show some self-love, you will not come back to that. Now, a lot of people have cravings also, and I would like to mention this because cravings usually, unfortunately, are not salty or sour taste, which is actually a natural taste for the human being. I think it's called umami, yeah? this.
More amino acid protein taste, umami.
That's right. Thank you, Oli. More amino acid protein test. So cravings usually somehow they tend to be for carbohydrates, for sugar, and obviously I always tell people that it's not you who is craving, it is actually bacteria that is craving. So there is some kind of imbalance there. There is some kind of what we call dysbiosis, okay? So we have to look into that, and you know, maybe just introducing also just some food that is probiotic, like fermented food. Usually, you know, whenever you are craving, have these cravings, just fermented food, if you can tolerate it, that is, okay? And by this I mean if you are not starting to itch or being red, for example, and just starting in very small dosages. You know, it could be pickles, it could be sauerkraut, it could be kimchi, it could be some kefir, for example. I would suggest in terms of kefir, always use the goat products or sheep products, because you know, very different from the cow products, because they're not agglutinated that much, so the proteins are much smaller and they're much more digestible basically, and they break down in a simpler way. Also just containing the right amount, you know, containing some proteins, also containing some fats. So obviously protein and fats are very, very important. And you know, they would be contained in some, for example, goat or sheep yogurt and kefir. And obviously, you know, whenever you are eating something, I would definitely suggest to incorporate some proteins. And to incorporate some fats. Just to be neutral, I would suggest the monounsaturated fats, for example, omega-9, something like a good, full of polyphenols, which are antioxidants, olive oil, for instance, really great. You know, or some MCT oil, okay, MCT C8 oil. I think further down somewhere we are going to expand on why MCT and C8 oil, but basically it is just a derivative of the coconut oil, okay? It is not strictly, you know, speaking saturated fat, because it's just a more, you know, acid, okay? And so it's not metabolized by the liver, so it doesn't tend to act, it doesn't require, let's say, the liver enzymes, for example. So I would start with a teaspoon of MCT-C8 oil. One of my favorites, and I'm not affiliated or associated with the company, but one of my favorites is the Keto Sauce, okay? Keto Sauce is a really good brand. They have done some clinical trials, very dedicated small team of people working on that. So just try adding that. There is a so to say secondary effect of the MCT-C8 oil, because it's very highly caprylic acid, okay, which is the C8. It's highly antimicrobial also. So this is why I start just with a very small dosage, like with a teaspoon of it in the morning. You can add it to your coffee, for example, okay, in case you are also fasting in the morning and you just take coffee. So add that to your coffee or to your breakfast, just to, you know, also to maintain your ketosis, for example, or to slow down the kick up from the sugar, because coffee actually does spike the glucose, okay? And some people can be fast metabolizers of coffee, some people can be slow metabolizers of coffee, and it actually also very interesting, it may influence your mood depending if you are fast metabolizer of coffee, yeah, or if you are slow metabolizer of caffeine, okay? I think what is very nice combination also to take, and very good results with this, it's a matcha tea, okay? Matcha tea in powder. It's really fantastic product, okay? And for those people who are very fast metabolizers of caffeine, and usually you would know that you are fast metabolizer because it could make you quite jittery, okay? And it could make you quite nervous or quite hyperactive. So, and even, you know, your heart rate could start racing, for example. So it's not necessarily a pleasant feeling, okay? So if you had MCT, it could cushion it a little bit better, but ultimately, you know, unfortunately, that's not for you, you know, that. Whereas the matcha tea, it's much nicer and it seems to be improving the energy levels, okay? I'm speaking about the matcha tea, usually in powder. It contains these, you know, very specific components that seems to be influencing the mood stability, and also it contains L-theanine. Okay, so L-theanine has got really a very nice calming feeling. Okay, yeah, just try that. And I think with the nutrition, just remember that every time that you incorporate proteins, especially the full spectrum amino acid proteins that, and unfortunately or fortunately, they are animal proteins. You know, I would probably go for some organic chicken or, you know, yeah, just for some lean meat rather. But, you know, you can obviously have some other organic meats, and if you have it maybe even, you know, 2 or 3 times a week, for example, and you can also have 2 or 3 times a week maybe some fish, you know, like mackerel or sardines, and also accompanied by a little bit of olive oil added to that, maybe a little bit of, you know, steamed broccoli added to that, you know, in small quantities. That would be great. Obviously, you can also have some pumpkin soup or zucchini soup, you know. So it depends what you are tolerating, and depends obviously how comfortable you feel. Unfortunately, here we don't have the scope to go into more personalized nutrition, but generally you would know if you're flaring up, if you feel comfortable, if you feel uncomfortable, you know. So yeah, just try to focus more on proteins, and obviously, you know, not to forget that there are proteins that are non-animal proteins, for example, that we really go very nicely with salads. Okay, this is a hemp protein, fantastic protein, and yeah. You can add it very comfortably with your rocket salad and watercress. You know, those ones are really great, the rocket and watercress, for example, because they have this bitter taste that also supports our liver. So just go for those. Remember that nutrition is a science, and everything that we eat converts into some kind of other molecules or organic acids, and that always helping our body to function or dysfunction, okay? And once again, just remember not to mix the soluble fiber with insoluble fiber, because it has a different traffic time, so that, you know, you're not causing yourself discomfort. And just be vigilant and be self-observant. So that's really important. Also, just about the nutrition, I would like to add that you can go for the rice. I would suggest and for you to maybe try some black rice or red rice. Okay, these rices, there are some companies who actually make them slightly fermented, and they are really great because they actually contain GABA, and they're not, strictly speaking, rice. They're actually herbs. Okay, so that's a very interesting point, because they are not really spiking your glucose. And you know, obviously whenever we are speaking about the glucose, we also speak about the insulin response that unfortunately these days not many people not many medical professionals are looking at the insulin response, but you know, we really have to eat for our metabolism, and you will immediately notice whether food is making you itchy, red, nervous, tired, you know, sleepy, groggy, dizzy. And so those are the signs that this food is not for you. Okay, and those could be also the signs that you are just overeating. So try all the strategies that we just mentioned, and also just try to eat less. Okay, because obviously some metabolisms can be slower, some metabolism can be also faster, and so, you know, if the metabolism is fast and you are getting very, very hungry, and you can get very teary and very nervous because you're just so hungry you cannot function, then check your 24-hour glucose response. Okay, let's see what the insulin is doing. Maybe it's too high, maybe it's just causing this hypoglycemia, and the test is called 24-hour glucose test. And just watch what actually makes your makes you feel this way. There are also very nice tools that I can suggest for people to carry, because we are all unfortunately full of sugar, or at some point we were, so we're trying just to change our diet and our nutrition. We're really speaking more about the nutrition as our lifestyle approach to our lives, you know, that we are really setting for lives, because our metabolism and our let's say epigenetic response to food is not likely to change. So, you know, we probably started early on somewhere on the wrong road, but we realize as we're getting wiser in our life that I have to change. And so, you know, this is why it's called really the lifestyle changes, okay, because you're really setting yourself up for life. And what is very interesting and very, very simple, because remember, we are here trying to speak very simple language, and also we are trying to really incorporate some very simple tools, so you don't have to, you know, go way out of your way. But it's a glucose meter, very simple one. Okay, you can buy it in the pharmacy, or you can buy it in the, you know, in your local store, you know, somewhere, or in some store on internet. You know, I know that there is a store like Stress No More, and there are some dispensaries also that selling it, you know. So just try those, and you can just pinch your finger in the morning, first thing in the morning, just to see what is your fasting glucose is. You know, we're usually aiming for something like 80, 85, and also just check also what is your glucose 1 hour after, you know, postprandial glucose. What is your glucose 1 hour after your food? And so you will start getting some idea, okay? And also maybe just out of curiosity, check your glycated hemoglobin, okay, A1C. This is a very interesting exercise, because although some people, they tend to have fasting glucose quite lower, their 120 days A1C glucose will be somewhere like 5.5, 5.7, even 6. So that means that you know, the red blood cells actually are full of, you know, carrying sugar, because we should be aiming somewhere around 4 or, you know, 5. That would be nice. And it may take some time to get there, okay, because obviously it's adjusting the metabolism a little bit, but just try to avoid also the cereals. Try to switch away from the cereals, or you can prepare maybe your own cereals, maybe incorporating something like you know, buckwheat, and maybe some you know, gluten-free oats, also just adding some you know, blueberries, maybe even some pine kernels, for example. I wouldn't go for too many nuts, okay? They may not settle necessarily well in the stomach. And, you know, from time to time, you can put a little bit of what's it called? The linseeds, for example, you know. Just remember that they always have to be grinded, so because they can actually scratch your stomach. And so yeah, just try those, and always add maybe a little bit of MCT C8 oil whenever you are taking your cereals, okay? Once again, because whatever cereals you are taking, it's gluten-free, okay, but it is still will be you know, part of it will be carbs, and it will be converted into sugar. So remember that oils, they basically slow down the sugar release, okay? And just add some hemp protein also. This is always very, very nice. If you're still feeling like, okay, my problem in my nutrition is sugar, okay, then just try to take some maybe chromium picolinate after your food, okay? You can try also berberine, for example, after eating. That's also quite nice. So those type of strategies, and this is really will also help your mood. Yeah, I think that those ones that I would really definitely go for nutrition-wise.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that's really interesting about the flax seeds. I actually didn't know that about the whole flaxseed scratching the inside. Wow, so there you go.
Yeah.
I know with the ground ones though, you have to keep them in the fridge or the freezer, no, once they're ground, otherwise they oxidize.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, always better to grind them. If you grind any seeds, you know, it's always better to grind them immediately. It literally just takes like 2 minutes. It's not time consuming, you know. I just have a very simple coffee maker and I grind them there. But yeah, just remember that everything is oxidizing, especially anything that has got fats will be oxidizing. Anything that is left open will be oxidizing. So, you know, food is pretty much like, you know, prepare and eat it, okay? And also just watch out for the, you know, mast cell response or histamine response, because again, you know, things that are being leftovers or being prepared and sort of consumed over days and days. You know, some people are fine, but some people are not so fine. And if you do prepare those food, just make sure that you are not actually garnishing it or, you know, putting some oil on it. Just left it there. Leave it there. Maybe put some lemon on it. Lemon is really very good because it kind of pre-digests it. Okay, but do not put any oils. Especially vegetable oils, you know. I mean, I know that olive oil is a vegetable oil, but it's omega-9. I'm more speaking about the oils that are safflower oil, the sesame oil, those type of oils, you know, the grape seed oil, the grape oil, yeah. So we have to really be very careful, you know, with those oils. I really like linseed oil. This is a great oil. Very good for the hormone modulation also. But the way that I would suggest for the consumption of the linseed oil is when you buy it, just put it in a jar and put it in the freezer, okay? And then just have a spoonful of it. So this is really great. And, you know, remember that sometimes less is more. And we also have to get into the custom to have different recipes, you know, so that we are not constantly eating the same breakfast and the same lunch, you know, and all this culture, like prepare yourself for a week, you know, so every week, you know, you've got your Tupperware and you're just eating that because you must eat, you know. So no, because now we know that we actually can really trigger the body into this response like, okay, well, the body will become defensive about processing the same things. The body really needs the variety. So, you know, and these days, amazingly enough, with all this fantastic food and fantastic selection, somehow we see more people with, you know, I would say rotten guts, you know, and really big reactions to food. And we must say, okay, so what is it that actually is producing it? Is it because in the past people ate more seasonal food? And is it because right now we just have and buy just anything and we just eat it? We do not ask where is it coming from. So I think variety is crucial. And also somehow our mood very much would depend, and this is on the more esoteric spiritual side, you know, when we are not eating, we are really connecting with ourselves, because chewing all the time, it's really not good. You know, we are intellectual beings, and this is what defines us and separates us from our brothers and sisters in the mammal world. So using our brain, it's fantastic. And we get as far as we can get because we are trying to use our brain, and we can go very far if we really want to.
So I think we might take this moment to move on with how our hormones affect our mood, maybe particularly with women, because our hormones do fluctuate so much within a monthly sort of cycle. And, you know, I think most people can experience.
Yeah. So usually, you know, the estrogen and progesterone and the estrogen, progesterone and testosterone, those are the hormones that release from our gonadal. They are gonadal hormones. So those ones would be released from our ovaries, obviously, or you know, the testes or adrenal glands. And so and pretty much they are released as a matter of the stress response also. In women, they're released very much sort of the dependency is very much on the cycle, right? And women are very much dependent on the estrogen, okay? And so when the estrogen goes low or when the estrogen goes high, you know, so we can get the premenstrual tension, for example, okay? Usually it's when we get lower on the estrogens, you know, we can get really sort of, you know, very unwanted responses. We can get very unwanted even depressions. And, you know, for example, we know that postnatal depression, you know, is really caused by the sort of the damp effects of the hormones. Also, I would just check the hormones, the estrogens, progesterone, and the testosterone. And together, I always would advise to check those hormones together with the cortisol, okay? It doesn't make sense to check the hormones just without the cortisol response, okay? Because high cortisol actually could mean that you know, we are getting very, very stressed, and in this sense, you know, taking the hormones or trying to fix our hormones really not going to help. I also suggest always to maybe work with a clinician, with a practitioner who really understands the hormonal responses and the cortisol responses. So always look out for stress, okay? People who don't think that they're stressed, okay, very often would be thinking about the stress that's, or women, okay, or could be men, but women with who I end up speaking more about the hormones, and very often they'll be saying, no, but I'm fine. And that would be related to having a good house, you know, having a good husband, not having particularly financial stress, you know, and yet you know, we forget about the internal stress, the stress that is really there and could be causing us the worries. So usually as I say, you know, if you are getting PMS, also just check yourself for the sex hormone binding globulins, for the 24-hour cortisol response. Progesterone, it's pretty important because it's a precursor to GABA. And obviously, I don't want to go too much into the details here, just not to confuse you, but progesterone is very much underestimated, okay? Because we focus so much on estrogen, and also we focus very much just on the, like, you know, 17-hydroxy, for example, just forgetting totally about the other estrogens, you know. And actually, when we are checking the estrogen, when people go with for their analytical work and they check estrogens, very often they just checking, you know, 17-hydroxy, and they're totally forgetting about other estrogens, okay? So checking good estrogens and the bad estrogens, it's very, very important, okay? Because those, not all estrogens are processed equally. So when you go to see your doctor or you work with the clinician, so always just ask, okay, so what about the checking the full panel of the estrogens? Okay, so, and just speaking about the progesterone actually is a precursor to GABA. It's a GABA aminobutyric acid, which is an inhibitor of anxiety. Okay, so that's something very important to bear in mind and always check. Together with this, I would always go and check also pregnenolone and also DHEA sulfate. Okay, those are precursors of the steroid hormones, and very often when people just start taking, for example, directly the progesterone, it can help for a while, but if you are having, for example, lower the pregnenolone, yeah, or some people have it higher, which is another story, or lower DHEA or borderline, that means actually that your capacity to produce steroid hormones is diminished. And then you would go all the way back to your adrenal response. So there is obviously some stresses going on. And when we are speaking about the stress, obviously we would always speak also about the thyroid. Are you nervous? Are you putting on weight? Are you losing weight? Okay, because these days people come and they say, well, you know, I've got a hypothyroid, you know, I'm in Euthyrox or levothyroxine, you know, or I take L-tyrosine, you know, I've been taking 500 milligrams and now I take 1,000 and so on. So, you know, just watch out for that. And usually those are the people that would say, you know, I've got some hyperactivity and then I get very tight and my hair is falling out and, you know, or I get some palpitations here, or I've got some nodules, for example, you know, I cannot rest, I cannot sleep, I have insomnia, you know, a whole variety. And so all these also obviously will be influencing the mood. Okay, so just watch out for those, and this is definitely also related to the adrenal response. So, you know, just mentioning here some supplement in advancement, you know, have a look at astragalus, have a look at Shisandra, for example, have a look at some, you know, hormone modulators, well, actually the adrenal response modulators. So it's like getting a big spade and trying to get and dig as deep as possible, yeah. So, and obviously also, you know, here it would very much depend also if the person is vegan, for example, or vegetarian. So you need to work with specifics of what you eat and how you feel, and just be connected with that, because everybody is different. But hopefully I mentioned some guidelines here, or somehow outline something that you can relate to.
Yes. Great.
Absolutely.
Are there any other supplements, or have you sort of covered? No.
I think with the supplements is, you know, I would probably mention just some vitamin D, definitely. Okay, vitamin D has been in the press very recently with regard to the current situation we are going through. But vitamin D, it's a huge hormone modulator, obviously, and vitamin D is a hormone. It actually participates in so many functions in the body. So vitamin D, and you know, I just would say you can go for a very high dosage of the vitamin D. You know, there are protocols when we are really using it quite freely, up to 1000 IU per kilo weight, but this has to be worked out with clinician. Always just check your parathyroid hormone also, from the point of view of the calcium metabolism also. But we do know that this is hugely important and plays absolutely amazing and huge role. Make sure that the optimal levels of your vitamin D is somewhere around 70 or 80. So far, I have not seen a person intoxicated with the vitamin D, I must say, but obviously when you supplement with vitamin D, and especially long term, also take the supplement of K1 and K2, for example, so that you know, for the correct calcium metabolism and for blood coagulation in a correct manner. So yeah, and B12 is really crucial also for anything that is mood. I would also just add maybe, you know, choline and inositol, trimethylglycine, TMG. Those ones are really hugely important. If you feel fatigued, you know, maybe go for some black maca, but remember that as soon as you start heart palpitations, stop taking it. It's modulators, so it means that don't take it forever. GABA, Schisandra, B6, but maybe, you know, in a small dosage, like 5 milligrams, you know, don't go high, because people sometimes don't metabolize B6 or, you know, P5P, it's the active form. Go for some selenium also, but maybe selenium should be better as selenium methionine or selenium cysteine. So those ones, okay? And yeah, L-theanine, you know, L-theanine is really good. And obviously don't forget teas like matcha tea, melissa, for instance. Those ones are really very calming and very soothing. If you feel tired, you know, also have a look at Radiola. Radiola is a very nice supplement that you can also take for the fatigue. Somehow moods will be always associated with the fatigue. And obviously don't forget to go for healing your gut, okay? This is like super, super crucial. And to take your glutamine, take your, you know, Sera enzymes to reduce the, you know, inflammation and stuff like this. If you take glutamine and you are feeling that you are getting anxious, it doesn't mean that you should not take glutamine, okay? This would means that actually you are missing an enzyme and the conversion of glutamine and glutamate, okay? But that's altogether a different story, okay? Because I do have some patients that come and they say, okay, well, actually glutamine made me so nervous, you know, and this person really has got a broken gut, for example. So I said, I read somewhere and it actually say, you know, don't take glutamine. So just remember that metabolism is not that easy. You know, everything is connected, and we've got this, you know, amazing cofactors and catalysts in our body, and they are very much needed in order to, you know, connect the reactions in the body. So indeed, by taking one supplement, you really can get, you know, very, very anxious, but it actually means that it's working. Okay. I also very much like working with some of the thyroid stuff and adrenal cortex stuff, for example, with very, very good company who use the tissue. Okay. It's really, really healing. I very much love going for healing the adrenals and adrenal cortex especially, and for healing the thyroid, and that use also, that those ones I usually tend to use the tissues, you know, very clean stuff, the bovine source from New Zealand, and you know, it's amazing, and people are really healing. So just remember, we must have a very long spade, and we must dig and dig, and stuff is always prepared behind the scenes, you know. So yeah, our moods always coming from somewhere. So where from? Well, we have to find out.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you, lovely. The company you mentioned for the glandular extracts or the tissues,